Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider for Clutch Points, joined on this fine Monday afternoon by Yossi Gozlan. I honestly like Yossi. So, in doing this, in reporting about it and talking to people about it, there's a certain amount of understanding of the cap that is like necessary to have conversations with people about the stuff and get ready for what the Lakers might be doing. But to take that next step and know it to the extent that you do, I'm just going to say thank you because because the stuff that I text you and stuff and your tweets and the amount of information that you throw out there is legitimately incredible. So you run capsheets.com, and then you have a newsletter and podcast called The Third Apron. The information on there is really good. You have found a really cool way of conveying that information. But I wanted to start by legitimately thanking you for taking the time to understand this shit in a way that like I can rely on and we can rely on. I hold up.
I appreciate it, Anthony. Thank you for supporting me every step of the way, for assisting me, being my one of my assistant GMs for that Lakers mock-off season we did. I think we cooked.
I think we did.
I think Laker fans would have preferred what we did, but here we are. Now we're going to discuss what actually happened.
We will. So that's how the show is going to go. We're going to look back first and talk about how the Lakers arrived here where they currently stand. And then we will look ahead using the leftover tools at the Lakers' disposal and also find ways potentially for the Lakers to open up some of those tools and see where we can arrive or where we think the Lakers will arrive by the time this offseason is all kind of said and done. The news today that came out, Yossi, was that the Dorian Finney-Smith contract is actually basically only a 2-year deal. I think they basically did a version of what they did with Fred VanVleet's contract, where it was like this giant balloon payment, but they never intended to pick up the team option on the second year of it. And Dorian Finney-Smith's contract is this thing where it's like, if he plays really, really well, maybe they'll pick up the third year, depending on how he's looking. Maybe they pick up the guaranteed money on the fourth year. But essentially, what it is a 2-year contract for about $13 million a year. And I know Lakers fans are probably wondering, wait, why couldn't the Lakers have done that? Aside from the lack of creativity often displayed by the Lakers front office, I reported here about the Dorian Finney-Smith situation breaking down. Now, the Lakers got kind of lucky in that while that was breaking down, Portland wasn't able to find any trade partners and wound up buying out DeAndre Ayton's contract. So it winds up being kind of a happy turn of events. At the end of the day, though, Yossi, I don't know. From a cap perspective, how do you think the Lakers have handled their cap? Have they maximized their opportunities with some of the decisions that they've made so far?
I don't know if it's more so the cap, like what they've done with the salary cap stuff. That's the issue. I think like getting DeAndre Ayton and Jake LaRavia, exactly splitting those two signings within the mid-level exception, that's great. So given the opportunity available to them, I think that's a great use of their resources. I've been more critical about just what the roster is now in general. So I don't really think that has much to do with like the salary cap stuff. Because the Lakers have been struggling over the past few years to get some semblance of the level of 3-and-D they had in their 2020 championship. KCP's gone, Caruso's gone, Danny Green. So Dorian Finney-Smith fell in their laps for 3 second-round picks. Like that. And the thing is, I'm not trying to say I'm like the biggest DFS defender by any means. It's just that I think that was the best the Lakers could realistically get given their limitations, how much they want to pay to get a 3-and-D defender. And for him to just leave, I think that's kind of a disaster for the Lakers. So I've been more critical about what just that aspect. I don't think this team is going to hold up defensively like it did last year. And this is just a great contract by the Rockets to get him on essentially what was a 2-year guaranteed deal. I've seen some reports, some rumors that that's what the Lakers offered, a 2-year deal. So technically they could have matched this. And this is still worth it for Finney Smith because he doesn't even need to necessarily play so well to get more of a guaranteed. It could be a situation where the Rockets just need to trade him, and the trade could result in him getting more of his money guaranteed. Like Chris Paul did a couple of years ago when he got traded for Bradley Beal. He made more money just by being in the trade.
Yeah.
So I think it's just smart that it's mostly the Rockets. They're the ones handing out these types of contracts. They did it with Jock Landale. They did it with another player. I forgot who it was.
I mentioned Van Vliet a second ago, but yeah.
Oh yeah, no. They did like the 4-year non-guarantee type thing. Van Vliet's a little different. That was like more of a short-term overpay. Yeah, because now he's kind of paying it back now, like you mentioned. But as far as what the Rockets are doing, like they get their Dylan Brooks replacement, and then they have an out from DFS. I would guess very likely chance that he's not going to be with the Rockets 2 years from now, because then Amin Thompson is going to need to get paid. And if Durant's still under contract, which, we'll see what happens then. That's 2 years from now.
Could never say with Durant.
Very well prepped for now and 2 years from now, once it's time to pay Amin. So, I know this is the Lakers pod, but I just wanted to say I really liked how the Rockets have done this.
Well, but I think it's important to note those kinds of things, right? I think a lot of times we can be kind of myopic when it comes to the Lakers. And this example of, because look, if you would have told me coming into the season or coming into the offseason, would you trade Dorian Finney-Smith for the starting center that the Lakers needed and serviceable wing, kind of replacement, pseudo replacement? I'd have been like, okay, yeah, I'm cool with that. But to me, process always matters. And like you kind of talked about Houston, and I think OKC is another really good example of this, where like all of their moves are very well, like these things aren't linear processes, but they are linked. There's a linkage between some of these decisions, and the timing of Dorian's non-guaranteed money and Amen Thompson's upcoming contract that they need to sign. That is like, I have much less problem with wanting to maintain flexibility for needing to re-sign your own guy. I have patience for that compared to, well, we might wind up wasting a couple of years of Luka because in a couple of years we want to sign Giannis. Like that's the part, like there's a difference there. And the process of arriving here, even if the end result is a positive one, the process of, well, we're going to piss off Dorian, we're going to lowball him, and we're going to leak information about his ankle, whether it's accidental or malicious, and piss off Luka's best friend on the team. I process isn't the best there. Now, this is a results business, and at the end of the day, the Lakers, I think, are better now in aggregate across their roster than they were going into the offseason. I think it's slightly better. There's still work to be done, and we'll talk about that work that needs to be done. But I don't know. I thought that this entire Dorian situation, and we'll talk about Jaxson Hayes here in a second as well, this entire Dorian situation kind of shined a light on some of the issues that I've had with the front office to this point. We'll talk about LaRavia and the deal that he signed. It's a 2-year. It's a very popular, I think, second contract for players of LaRavia's ilk, where it's like, in terms of small sample size or in small sample sizes, LaRavia is a fairly impressive player. And the gamble in this 2-year deal is that can scale up. And in that regard, I like the gamble. I like the LaRavia signing. I like the thinking behind it. You also keep Austin Reeves's agency happy while you prepare for Reeves's unrestricted free agency, probably next season. What do you think of the Laravia signing?
I like the signings. I like both the signings they did to get Laravia and to get Ayton at the rates they did. I think those are great value signings. I just kind of fall back on if was there a way they could have kept Finney Smith as well. Now it's worth noting that they couldn't have done both these signings and just simply re-signed Dorian Finney Smith because using that mid-level exception hard capped him to the first apron. After all the moves they did, they're about 900,000 below the first apron with a full 15-man roster. So they would have had to do something if they were able to come to terms with something on Dorian Finney-Smith. Likely have to pay a team like a second round pick or two to take on Vincent or Kleba, one of them. So that's the only thing. If they were able to keep him, I think this would have been a pretty home run offseason, all things considered. But just like to simply answer your question, like in a vacuum, yes, I like the Ayton Laravia signings.
Yeah. These things aren't, like meals that we prep. You don't make a meal by putting a bunch of Ziploc bags on the plate. The Ayton thing is interesting here because the Lakers will have cap space to resign him. So could you just really quickly, talk about, like, if Ayton plays well, he has a player option for the second year of his contract. I would be pretty surprised if he exercises that the second year of that contract. What are the Lakers' options if Ayton plays well to keep him beyond this season?
So one, I'll just talk about their cap space based on my most recent projections. They could get up to like 46 million in cap space. And if they were to find a trade for Vanderbilt, perhaps that can jump up to around like 55, maybe close to 60. And right now, the Clippers, they're positioned to have just as much cap space. There's maybe a couple other teams that haven't looked too deeply into it, but so far, no big extensions announced. So technically, there could be maybe a decent market with guys like De'Aaron Fox, Mikal Bridges. I'm guessing they're going to extend, but technically hasn't happened yet. But I think it's more so 2027 they're planning on, which as of now, that they're still fine. Like if they can create close to 50 million now based on all their obligations, it'll probably be something even higher in 2027. So Ayton's got that player option, 8.1 million amount. It's I saw it's just flat cap hits for both Ayton and Laravia. So if Ayton were to opt out, then the Lakers would be able to give him 120% increase off his 8.1 million amount. So something like close to 10 million, they'd be able to give him next year if they need to give him that raise in order to keep him. And up to a 4-year deal. But probably more likely is that he'd probably just do like another 1+1 if the market's not that great for him. And then the Lakers would have his early bird rights in 2027. So then they could try to figure out a way where hopefully they'll have whoever they're targeting in 2027, they'll either have traded for him or they'll have someone just kind of lined up to sign. And then they can also go ahead and re-sign Ayton to something that's a little more closer to his actual value. He's not a $35 million player, but I kind of felt that
player either.
But exactly. I kind of felt that when he was finishing up, when he was heading into his contract here with the Suns, that he was probably worth something like mid-20s. Mm-hmm. If he can get back closer to the highs from his Phoenix days, he's probably worth something like the low 20s at the highest ends. But even if he's like more like higher mid-level range, Lakers will have the means to pay him close to that amount with his early bird rights if things work out with him.
Yeah, I don't think any team is going to, shell out 4-year contracts for basically anybody anymore, to be completely honest, unless it's a superstar. I could see Ayton playing well enough that he signs that 1-and-1 deal. And then depending on the kind of flexibility that the Lakers need in 2027. Actually, you know what? Let's take a quick detour in a second and talk about the whole the Giannis plan. I was told in pretty definitive terms to stop making the Project 2027 jokes. I'll go ahead and stop doing that out of respect. But the part of it that on Ayton that I find really interesting here is, and I've talked about this on the show a ton. I really think that he's a product of his situations. I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure you do, but the Suns basically told him, "Hey, man, set good screens, roll really hard to the rim, protect the rim, get rebounds, and do all the winning stuff, and we'll give you your contract." And then he did that stuff. They made it to the finals, and he was like, "All right, where's my contract?" And they're like, "What contract? I'm sorry." And I think that really made him cynical for the rest of his time there in Phoenix. And then he gets traded to Portland at a time where they're tanking. So I don't think he has been in like a winning situation in a while. I'm really fascinated to see how this specific situation where he has creators like Luka and LeBron and Austin creating for him, when he has a team that, is I would say fairly confident and comfortable in relying on him to help them win basketball games. You have Rob putting his own personal stamp on the press release when they announced the Ayton signing. I'm really curious how Ayton kind of fares here, and it makes me kind of think that if a player, like one of the things that I would like in the next CBA or an addendum to the current CBA, if they just opt out and make some tweaks, is some kind of bird rights for players that teams make gambles on. And we're seeing, the restricted free agency situations play out with Kuminga and with Grimes, and how players are kind of stuck in that situation because restricted free agent is an oxymoron. With Ayton's situation and teams that do take that gamble on a player like that, I think it'd be cool to see those guys get the teams rewarded when those gambles pay off. What would that look like if I was to say, like, "Hey, Yossi, I need you to design this kind of a clause"? What would you do there, do you think? I'm putting you on the spot completely, so apologies.
The one that a lot of people try to pitch is, what if you can get like, maybe it doesn't fully count against the tax and aprons, maybe just a portion of that money does, especially not necessarily for Ayton, but like for homegrown players you drafted. So this would be more applicable to like OKC. But anything that you can kind of use as an exception against the tax, so you don't spend too much, you don't get penalized too much, I think that kind of makes sense. But to your point about Ayton playing in a winning situation for the first time in a while, I do think we're going to see a much better version from him than we have seen in recent years. This is his first, he signed that contract in 2022. So 21-22 was like the last year was like truly motivated, was a contract year. Yeah. And these past 3 years, he's had the comfort of having still multiple years left on his contract. Now he's technically on a contract year, even though he still has some protection next year. I think he'd like to make more than what he's currently making.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And this ecosystem, you can't really ask for a much better offensive ecosystem if you're DeAndre Ayton. So I expect to see a better motivated version from him, especially knowing that he has to work to rebuild his value again, because by agreeing to this value, agreeing to this buyout, his value has taken a significant hit. So he needs to rebuild it right now.
Yep. Let's talk about the Hayes signing and I don't want to call it a bind, but it certainly surprised people that Hayes got more than it surprised me that he was signed at all, but it surprised people that Hayes not only was re-signed, but also brought back on more than the minimum. It was a 100%, 120% raise on his minimum, or what he could have made on the minimum. If you could explain the differences here between using any kind of biannual exception money, or, like what kind of a sale or re-signing was this with Hayes?
So when I heard he was re-signing on a 1-year deal, usually that's kind of code for it's just a minimum signing. So I just assumed it was a minimum signing. I didn't see any market really above that for him. And then it was reported that he actually got a little more than the minimum. So this doesn't come out of the biannual or anything like that. So Jaxson Hayes, since he's been with the Lakers for 2 years, he's got early bird rights. So he technically could have even gotten more than this. However, if he were to get more through his early bird rights, then the Lakers have to give him at least 2 years. And I don't think
They did not want to
really
do that.
made that much. Yeah. So why did the Lakers give him more money? I recently found out yesterday.
Super weird cough that surely came completely out of nowhere.
Yeah, I found out yesterday that Jaxson Hayes is a BDA client, Luke is a BDA client, Ayton's a BDA client. So take that with, however you will. So he gets a little bit more. So maybe there was a little bit of a market above, maybe not above the minimum, but maybe there were other minimum offers for Hayes. But I think he projects to be the primary backup over Kleba. So this is still pretty good opportunity for him. So they just gave him a little bit more. They're now a little closer to the first apron. So the big like concern right now in Lakers Nation I see is, well, can the Lakers use the full biannual? So, because if they were to waive Shake Milton, which they probably will, his guarantee date is in a couple weeks, then they can't use the whole entire thing, which could be an issue if they're trying to get like Bradley Beal, for example. So if they want to use the whole thing, they have to waive Jordan Goodwin too, unless they do another trade. And I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that. Not because like the Lakers would care, like because they're like okay with losing Jordan Goodwin, but if they get intel that he's not going to get claimed, that there's no other teams for him, then they could just resign him back to the minimum. Jordan Goodwin would actually make more money that way because his minimum salary this year would be more than what his salary right now is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just something I realized, like let's say they could get Beal for the biannual, cut Milton, cut Goodwin, and then I'd have to check with the hard cap. Maybe I'm off with that, but as far as like procedurally, they could still technically bring back Goodwin on a minimum.
Feel like because Goodwin's contract is currently below the minimum, that would increase the chances the team would pick him up, claim him on waivers. But yeah, that would be interesting. The biannual aspect of this, obviously, the like you said, the straight line version of addressing opening up more of the biannual exception, meaning any of it, right? Because they're right up against the first apron right now. They're like,
yeah,
just under $1 million below the first apron right now.
Yeah, and they're gonna need some buffer. That's like a good amount where they could then sign someone like kind of mid-season if they needed to. But most likely, again, they'll cut Shake Milton. They'll have a lot more to work with. Maybe they just sign someone to the minimum to replace him if they already want to fill up that 15th spot.
Yeah, I asked about what they're trying to do because usually there are a few rules that Rob likes to abide going into an NBA season. He likes having an open roster spot. He doesn't like having 15 guys on the team heading into the season. He likes to have a first-round pick in his back pocket, at least, going into a season. And there was a third rule there that I'm blanking on. Well, those are two important rules: a roster spot and a first-round pick. And if I think of the third one while I am talking, then I'll interject myself. But if he abides those two rules, or if he wants to abide those two rules, the third one was like having a little bit more breathing room than they currently have up against that apron or the hard cap that they're at. So, in order to accomplish those three things, it's screaming consolidation trade. in one way or another, even if it's just tacking on Shake Milton onto a trade where he isn't necessary to be aggregated into the trade, that means that his contract could just be waived at that point, right? So the only correct me if I'm wrong here, but the only way for Milton's contract to be guaranteed by way of trade is if that money is necessary to reach the necessary salary, right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, what the Lakers could do is, even if they find a 1-for-1 deal where it's like expiring money and a future draft pick for player X, they could tack Shake Milton onto that contract, and that contract, the non-guaranteed money, wouldn't count against the money necessary for that trade. That would therefore, clear a roster spot and open up a little bit more for the Lakers financially. That, I think, is what the Lakers are working towards right now, either a 2 or a 3-for-1 trade, so that they can open up that roster spot. The problem is that requires, the house to be for sale on the other end of the line, as Rob likes to talk about. So what would you say? The Lakers are hard capped at the first apron here, and they only have that, again, just under $1 million in breathing room there. Would you, if you were in charge of the Lakers, would you use that money now on the biannual, even if it means going up against that first apron, to bring in a DeAnthony Melton or one of these other buyout guys? I know everybody's focused on Bradley Beal. I don't think he's necessarily an option for the Lakers, but still, everybody's kind of focused on Bradley Beal. Marcus Smart is another guy that teams are kind of keeping an eye on. Would you use that money now, or would you try to keep it open in case other guys get bought out over the course of the season?
It's tough. I think, like, if it's Beal, for example, I think that's just something you kind of have to you take him and figure it out later. Melton, I'm just curious to know what the market is for him. Because I feel like, with the way he played the last few years, he's definitely at least a biannual guy. I mean, he got the full mid-level last year with the Warriors for 1 year, but it wouldn't shock me if teams are only wanting to go the minimum for him. Those are the only two guys that really, based on where the Lakers roster stands, I guess I'd consider using the biannual on. Otherwise, yeah, just play things out. I like the roster. It's pretty much set. They can go into this. I would probably most likely at this point, because I wouldn't think Beal or Melton might even be realistic options. Just cut Milton, see if you could get a good vet on the minimum, and that way you have a little bit more flexibility, maybe like $1.5 million, and that gives you some more wiggle room for trades later. Because unlike last year, the Lakers could increase their payroll now since they're below the first apron. They could still sign and trade for free agents now. I mean, it'll be a complicated trade, but they could technically do that. So, yeah, just based on what they've done, they already have Hayes now committed. I think my go-to would have been try to keep the biannual for Al Horford, but that's probably not in the cards anymore. So I'd probably just keep the flexibility open for trades.
Yeah, it makes sense. Melton's market has been pretty difficult to nail down. Some people think that because of the number of teams that are interested in him at the minimum, that it's going to take a little bit more than the minimum to sign him. So then you're using some of your biannual money on there. I haven't found too many people who think that it's going to require the full biannual exception to sign Melton. But there are, quite a few teams after him. So we'll see what his number could come down at. I'm still dubious about Bradley Beal giving up $14 million to be waived and stretched. I know that's where all of the reporting is heading towards. And I wouldn't be shocked if he did, but this is a guy who hasn't waived his no trade clause. And now we're expecting him to give up money to leave Phoenix. I'll be curious to see what happens there. But if he does, he's going to be looking to recoup whatever money that he gives up by way of that waive and stretch. And the biannual doesn't do that for him based on the numbers that they're talking about right now. So I think it's likelier he goes somewhere that can pay him a little bit more and give him a better opportunity. Like I've been hearing Lakers fans wonder, well, if the Lakers somehow get Beal, would he come off of the bench? That's the whole reason he doesn't want to be in Phoenix anymore. It's because he doesn't want to come off the bench there. I don't know that he would all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, I'll come off the bench for Austin Reeves. So that would be interesting. The Clippers opened up a shooting guard spot for him in their starting lineup. That feels like the place where he probably is going to be going. The next bit of I guess the next discussion I'd like to have with you, Yossi, is this whole Giannis plan, the idea of maintaining as much cap flexibility heading into the summer of 2027 as possible. And you pay really, really close attention to the very granular, aspects of cap construction and cap flexibility and all of this stuff. In a very macro way, I am of the belief that flexibility in the NBA under this CBA is actually employing players that other teams want to have more so than having your books literally clean for any given summer. In prior CBAs, I would have totally agreed that, keep your books open so that you can be a threat to sign Giannis whenever he becomes a free agent. But now with everybody signing their extensions and free agency not necessarily being any, the way that anybody is departing their teams, certainly superstars are departing their teams. I don't really love the idea of prioritizing 2027 flexibility over employing good basketball players. What do you think about that kind of juxtaposition or those two options for planning the future?
Really quickly, I just want to touch on what we're touching on Beal. It does feel like the Clippers might be the spot, especially after that Norman Powell trade.
Yeah.
And they also they wouldn't be able to immediately have him recoup all the money that he just gave up. But it's worth noting the Clippers, they've been like the buyout kings, bringing in guys at like Batum and Westbrook and Reggie Jackson, and they paid all those guys. Like they paid them as much as they could with their limitations. So if Beal's looking for a good situation for him where he could potentially start, but also have like kind of the promise of getting paid in the future, the Clippers have delivered on that in the past. So it just seems like that might be where it's going. But as to your question, right now does not seem like it's the best for teams to plan to have cap space, because it just that hasn't been the way players have been moving around anymore. Right. I talk about it all the time. Ever since COVID in 2020, the salary cap froze. Players started signing extensions again because you were getting just as much money than when if you were entering a free agency and signing a new contract, because it used to be the other way around. Now in the new CBA, they changed the extension rules where players are much more, they can get larger extensions now. So now they're more motivated to secure the money now and figure out their destination later in trade. And we're seeing now that the only way really good players are switching teams in free agency is by just like a series of bad decisions by the team letting it happen. Because most teams nowadays, they get ahead of that. If they get an inkling that their player is going to leave in free agency, they're going to trade him before and get something before it's too late. The biggest example is the Mavs. They originally gave Jalen Brunson a contract that didn't have a team option, so he had to be an unrestricted free agent because it was a 4-year deal. And then they never extended him ahead of time. They let him become a free agent, and by the time he hit free agency, it was too late. He was already gone. He signed with the Knicks. We just saw Miles Turner leave the Pacers. The Pacers just told him, go find a bigger deal than whatever we're offering, and he did. And now, just a big mistake by the Pacers, just not by lowballing him early on, not paying him what he's worth. So it would take something like that, like a bunch of compounding mistakes by a team like the Bucks to lose Giannis in free agency, because I would suspect that most likely he gets traded if like the Bucks would want to get something for him. Now, it doesn't mean that cap space doesn't have any value, because cap space now can be more so a credible threat for a team to target a player that they want. We just saw it with the Spurs. They were going to have 2026 cap space as well. And De'Aaron Fox made it clear to the Kings, hey, if I'm not going to extend with you guys, if I make it to free agency, I'm signing with the Spurs. They have the cap space to pay me. And that the Spurs were able to leverage that into trading for him early and at a pretty low price. So that's probably the optimistic scenario the Lakers are hoping for, is that they can leverage their 2027 cap space in combination with Giannis, I suppose it is, wanting to go to the Lakers if that's what he wants, to then get a trade happening. That's more realistically how they could get a guy like Giannis. So then it just kind of comes down to, well, is that what Giannis wants to do? And maybe him probably staying in Milwaukee another year gets them a little closer to that scenario, because no one's considering the Lakers right now as a Giannis team.
Yeah, the funny part about this is, while the Lakers have this Giannis plan that they are, reportedly following, that there are teams around the league that are doing what the Lakers are doing, but for Luka. So you have Denver kind of lining up their ducks to make a Luka pursuit. You have the Clippers doing that same thing. It's going to be funny when, like, it's just going to be that gif from The Office where it's the Mexican standoff and they're like, they have their finger guns at each other, and it's like, all right, one of these teams is going to get Luka. I guess the other one's going to get Giannis. And by the way, at every turn, Giannis has remained, loyal to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee has found a way to keep Giannis loyal. I don't know. Me personally, I think my approach with Luka is fairly simple. Just give him the best team you can possibly have around him. And if a player looks over at that and says, that looks like fun, then you trade those good players for Giannis after that. If it's Giannis or Jokic or whoever, if they look over and they say that looks fun, because that was the other half of the Spurs pursuit, right? Was that not only did they have their books clean for the summer that De'Aaron Fox could have signed with them, but they also had the assets to go to Sacramento and be like, hey, let's make this respectable. And here's some junk and best of luck on your ways. Like,
here's some change.
Yeah, right. Yeah, hold on. What do I got in my back pocket? Hey, Pop, what do we got in the back seat back there? Like, it's just I think that is how superstars tend to move. And again, I keep on. I know that the Luka situation was pretty unique in that Nico Harrison lost his godforsaken mind, but that was another situation where it was like the reason the Lakers got Luka was because they had a player on their books that Nico wanted. They had Anthony Davis, and they had, Max Christie, who the Mavs really liked on his contract at the time. So that's this whole pursuit of max flexibility for the summer of 2027. If that is in any way hindering what the Lakers are trying to do and building a team around Luka and around LeBron, not saying that it definitely is, but there's a hint of it out there. I wouldn't love that too much. I would say you have a pretty good opportunity here with LeBron coming off of an all NBA type season and Luka looking skinny. Let's see what you can do in the upcoming season.
Yeah, I worth noting though that if Reeves does resign, that's gonna eat up into their 27 space a good amount. I haven't done any projections, but just thinking about that, Yeah, I don't know how much. I don't know if they'd have like the highest tier cap space if they once they presumably re-sign Reeves. So I don't know, just something worth noting.
Or Rui or Ayton, like
Yeah.
Ayton especially. We just saw them give Jaxson Hayes more than they needed to because of the Duffy connection. If Ayton is their legit starting center and has that connection and is close with Luka, that I think messes with that plan a little bit. So again, I just think it's pretty simple. Just go out and get good players. And if they have contracts that extend a year or so beyond what you're comfortable with, then cross that bridge when you get there. And at the end of the day, just compile talent. It's like this thing that they were doing in the back half of the LeBron AD era, where at some point stop waiting for LeBron to slip, stop waiting for Anthony Davis to slip, and take advantage of the fact that at the time they weren't showing those signs of slippage. Let's wrap things up here relatively soon, and then I'll jump into some of the questions that some of the live viewers have had. Moving forward, I think again they're working on a consolidation trade. I think worst case scenario, they just waive Shake Milton's non-guaranteed money and maybe also Goodwin's non-guaranteed money. But because I do believe the Lakers are interested in a starting caliber small forward. I know Rui has been kind of pigeonholed into playing small forward, but I think the Lakers would like to employ an actual small forward with their starting unit next year. So I think that's their goal. I know Wiggins is the kind of familiar name that has been, kind of ever present all summer. But what are there is there anything that you're kind of looking for that would signal what the Lakers are looking to do, or would signal what the entire league is looking to do? I feel like everybody's just kind of staring at Phoenix right now.
Wait, you mean in the long run or right now? What are teams looking for?
Maybe a little bit of both, right? Like, yeah, I think right now the thing that's bottlenecked the entire league is the Bradley Beal situation. And I think once that is kind of released, we'll see another kind of wave of activity. But is there anything that that you would signal what the Lakers might be looking to do long term? Just in terms of, because you're really good at reading the tea leaves and what they're kind of getting ready to do potentially. Is there anything that you're kind of looking for?
I mean, I think I got more enlightened talking to you about what their plan is, because I've been, I don't project too far ahead, like 2027, and know that's what they've been planning to do. I knew 2026 they could technically do something, but if 2027 and trying to get Giannis topped out and join them is the plan, or try to get a trade to happen, I would figure they want to keep all their picks. They already don't have many to trade. They could only trade one first round pick. They have a bunch of swaps they could trade. But then I think they only have like 2 second round picks. So if that's the plan, I think the Lakers are probably in the short term trying to keep as much as they can so they can spice up their best package possible if that opportunity comes, which could make improving the roster kind of hard right now, because in theory, understand if they want to try to just package like Vincent and Kleba, try to get Andrew Wiggins, pitching, and maybe send in Connect and just kind of pitch Miami, hey, you get off the money for Wiggins next year. It doesn't seem like that's what Miami's interested in, but I think the Lakers want to try to turn those salary slots into a player of Wiggins caliber and his contract, only 2 years remaining, without giving up any significant assets. So that'll be the challenge if they could pull something like that off. But I mean, I do think it's worth then talking about the one player we haven't even mentioned. I don't think we even mentioned his name at all. LeBron James. I mean, do you think it's at all possible that the Lakers do just consider trading him this year to resolve that timeline conflict, but then also really get that that other forward, maybe 2, get a deeper roster. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, one, I'm kind of chuckling at the fact that we went 45 minutes of a podcast, and this is the first time we're mentioning LeBron. I think that's a record. I honestly think it's a record that this time of year. So what I reported this morning when I narrated the piece that I wrote over the weekend about LeBron is that there are two sides of the story, essentially, but all that really matters is that LeBron anticipated getting another 1-and-1 deal, that he could opt out of this contract, get another 1-and-1 deal with a probably at or near the max with a no trade clause still attached to it. And that deal wasn't waiting for him. And I think that's kind of the crux of why we've had the subtweet make a return to our lives. So do I think they could trade LeBron? I think if LeBron goes to the Lakers and says, hey, I'm not going to be too difficult about this with this no trade clause. I understand that, you guys have to do what's in your best interest, and then also keep in mind what I think is in my best interest. Let's try to find a deal that is mutually beneficial to both of us. And if LeBron and the Lakers get on the same page in that regard, it's like a non-zero chance that he could be traded. I think it's far more likely that he is on the Lakers next year, but I don't think we can dismiss that as a possibility out of hand. And, to your point about, the Lakers right now, if they were to go to Milwaukee and, if Giannis tells Milwaukee, hey, thanks for the Miles Turner thing. Thanks for getting me Dame. And I guess thanks for getting me Kuzma. But if he goes to Milwaukee and says, hey, I'm probably not going to, I would like to go play with Luka in LA. The Lakers don't even have here's some spare junk offer for them. And if they trade LeBron, I think that does improve the kind of, hey, let's keep it respectable offer that they could make to Milwaukee for Giannis. And I think that would kind of link complete kind of the missing parts of the bridge that bridges that gap between where they're at right now and their pursuit of Giannis in 27. But if because here's the part that I see a lot of people always, kind of linking the Lakers and Cleveland in this LeBron situation. That trade is almost impossible for me to come up with, because you have to get Cleveland under the second apron as part of that deal, but the Lakers can't take back enough money to help Cleveland get under that second apron. So you would then need to include a third team that would first get Cleveland under the second apron, and then Cleveland needs to send stuff to the Lakers that the Lakers would be interested in. And that's a team that everybody seems, to pencil LeBron onto their roster most often. I don't see him getting bought out. So if he isn't getting bought out, let's say we entertain a world in which LeBron is getting traded. Which situation do you think makes the most sense to you for him to get traded to?
So I bring it up because pragmatically speaking, if the Lakers kind of concluded that this might be the last year for LeBron, the fact that they didn't want to already lock him in for next year, then why not explore the possibility of trading him now and getting and answering all these rotation needs that they have, including maybe getting 2 above average perimeter defenders at the wing. I think if the Lakers could somehow accomplish that, I think that would make a lot of sense. So as far as the buyout thing, yeah, that would be such a worst case scenario for the Lakers. I wonder if LeBron can really flex his, hey, I don't want to get traded to any of these teams that since no one could really trade for me. If the market was so low, please buy me out or I'm going to retire. And then if it comes to that, then the Lakers kind of have to buy him out. But I don't think it needs to come to that, because I only see 2 viable trades. And by that, I think really just one. The Cavs one, it's not going to happen. Then there's like the Knicks, which would be like a lot for the Knicks to give up, in my opinion. Like they'd have to give up either Karl Anthony Towns, or they'd have to give up a combination of OG and Mikal, and that would be a fantastic outcome for the Lakers.
Yeah.
But I think the one that's more realistic would be the Dallas one. I know we've discussed it before, where the Mavs can get there with a combination of guys like Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, one of Caleb Martin, Najee Marshall, maybe Max Christie. I'm thinking, like, what if it was like a multi-team trade? Maybe the Heat get involved and the Lakers could get Wiggins, and the Heat get other pieces from the Mavs instead to help with whatever their goals are. I think that's kind of the viable LeBron trade at this point, and this that would happen this year. Anthony Davis is obviously there. Kyrie Irving is there. So
D'Angelo Russell is there.
Yeah, how can I forget? So I kind of like that for the Lakers. Honestly, at this point, given where everything is, given how it seems like the LeBron's time in Lakers, whether it's after this year or maybe in the year after next, it is, kind of coming to an end soon, it feels. So if they could turn 40-year-old to turning 41-year-old LeBron James into all that, maybe even get a pick, I think I'd kind of want to do that at that point than keep him.
Yeah, I to me the biggest thing is, if LeBron wants to be in LA, cool. Stick around in LA. If LeBron wants to be moved, fine. Let's find a spot that we both benefit from. I think my favorite funny trade or fake trade to kind of roll with here is if LeBron wants to go to Golden State and it's just a 1-for-1 with Jimmy Butler, that's kind of a funny option here as well. Just to see how that would turn out. But yeah, I don't know. For a few reasons, because the other part of it too is Lakers fans have really supported retired Lakers over the years, to the extent where Magic became a billionaire. Shaq is, I think, near billionaire. I don't know if he's officially a billionaire yet. Kobe, I believe, was a billionaire by the time, or on his way to becoming a billionaire by the time he passed away. And Lakers fans, if they feel like somebody did right by them, tend to do right by that player after their playing days are over. And I don't know if LeBron wants to leave on bad terms and risk that relationship with the biggest, I think, basketball fan base in the world. So that's another thing to kind of watch for, is that tightrope he might walk if he does want to leave, of leaving but doing so respectably and trying to leave on good terms with the Lakers as an organization and the Lakers fan base. That will be really interesting to watch as well. But yeah, I hope I don't get aggregated for saying I think there's a world where LeBron gets traded without the rest of the context of, I think it's far more likely that he's a Laker next year. All right, let's really quickly, we have one super comment here, so I'm going to just really quickly answer that and then send you on your merry way, Yossi. We have to start with the most important clip on the show, though. All right. Brandon Oeming writes, Gabe Vincent, Maxey, and a second-round pick for Dylan Brooks, Dalton Connect for Nick Richards, and the DeAnthony Melton on the biannual. Would Gabe and Maxey for Brooks open up money? I don't think Connect for Richards would. So what off the top of your head, I don't think that opens up the biannual for Melton.
No, first of all, I don't need to do the math. None of this would work. You can't, doing all these moves would not open up enough BAE to use the whole thing.
Yeah.
at the same time, I don't think the Suns do either of these deals. They need Dillon Brooks. Like the Lakers, they don't really have any perimeter defense, but Dillon Brooks is their one guy. I don't think they're going to just trade him for seconds. They're going to try to be competitive. I don't know if they want. I don't know if Connect is doing anything for the Suns. I just don't think the Suns do any of this, to be honest.
Yeah, I Connect for Richards, I think would technically, pique their interest, but Connect's value is pretty low across the league right now. So like I've seen Lakers fans kind of pencil him into their trade proposals as a first round pick or first round adjacent type value, and I think he's probably closer to a second rounder in terms of value around the league. And I mean, look, Nick Richards isn't exactly, nobody's exactly falling over themselves to trade for Nick Richards either, but and they have Mark Williams, and they drafted Maluak, which that's their two centers, I would imagine, primarily. But yeah, it would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, the point of this exercise and you and I talking has been finding ways for the Lakers to open up biannual money, and that stuff wouldn't do it. So I would still say, making a trade where the Lakers take back like $3 or so million less than they send out would be ideal, especially if it also clears a roster spot.
Yeah.
All right.
Utah, they just saved a bunch of money. Maybe there's something to be done there.
I can't believe that's all that they traded Collins for. I mean, they were getting ready to buy him out, so technically it's more than nothing, but yeah, that's kind of crazy. Yossi, anything to plug before we get you out of here?
Where can I? So I've got my show, my newsletter, both named Third Apron. The newsletter on Substack, Deep Salary Cap Analysis, and then I have my show, the Third Apron Podcast. Anthony is a friend of the show. I'll probably have him on at some point. Make sure to subscribe to both of those. You guys can see all my salary cap information on capsheets.com. That's fully up to date with all the transactions that recently happened. And make sure you follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and my name, Yossi Gozlan. I have instant salary cap analysis as soon as transactions happen. Best time of the year to follow me and have me on notifications.
Absolutely. The information is impeccable. And more importantly, because this information can get pretty weighty, with all the numbers and stuff like that. But I think, Yossi, you've done a phenomenal job of keeping things light and having some fun with it too. So, yeah, everybody go check out Yossi's work. And yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of the Lakers Lounge. And I don't know if you guys have checked it out already, but I narrated the article I wrote over the weekend about LeBron. That is on the RSS feed, so check that out. But the best way to make sure that you don't miss anything is to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we will talk to you again whenever we do. Have a good one, everybody.